This is my BMW E31 8 Series that I purchased on the 18th of July 2024. It is now the 23rd of September, the best part of 8 weeks since I purchased this car. Today in this video we're going to go through everything that it's taken to get this BMW back on the road. The first thing that we changed on this BMW was the battery on the right hand side. There's a Yuasa battery there, and there's also a battery on this side. Try and show you that there. So that's what was changed to get the car up and running. Obviously we had a battery drain issue. In order to deal with the battery drainage problem, the first item that needed to be replaced was something known as the general module, or GM module. This surprisingly is actually a General Motors part, but it is still possible to order the part from BMW. The part exists beneath the passenger side footwell, and in fact I'll see if I can jump to some footage where we removed the general module. This is the GM module that has been removed from the car. I'll just turn it over so you can see the colours. So if you're removing this yourself, this resides on the passenger side and it's just beneath there. That is the driver's side. So if you're in America, it will be on the driver's side. If you're in the UK, it's on the passenger side. So if you're looking to remove this GM module, it is on the passenger side. Now, this general module cost around £700 to replace. It is not cheap, it's quite expensive. What happens within this general module is that there are 5 capacitors that tend to blow, and what you really need to do is just replace those 5 capacitors. So in terms of costs, it'll cost you less than a tenner to get the 5 capacitors, and if you've got basic soldering skills, you can repair the unit for pretty much next to nothing. If you have no soldering skills and you are pressed for time, as I was, you can purchase a new general module from BMW. I purchased one from the main dealer. The price was nearly £700, but as I mentioned, it is a repairable part, and in fact my one is being repaired by a friend at the moment, so I'll be able to put that back onto eBay and I'll be able to sell that for £500. So that was the biggie. The minute we replaced the general module, the battery drain ceased. So new general module has arrived. As you can see, the previous general module had a number of 61351383410. That has now changed to this number, which is 61356957038. So it's an upgraded part number. New module is on top you can see that there is a different code, and the old one is on the bottom. This is what they look like at the rear, where you can see the differences. The old one had a yellow slot, the new one has a maroon one. This is the original general module that is back from repair. These are the 5 capacitors that have been replaced. These are the ones that were obviously fitted in the general module. It now has 5 new capacitors, so the total cost was £45. It was 20 quid really for the capacitors and 25 quid labour, so £45 in total rather than £700 from the main dealer. I was fortunate enough to be invited to the garage where the car was being worked on, and I was able to see the car on a lift, and the car needs quite a bit of work with the front suspension. That is really the last major job that needs to be done on the car. In order to get the car running, however, we had loads of pipes that had deteriorated here. It's almost as if the car had gone over a really steep bump, and that had shaved off the fuel lines, the fuel pipes. So beneath any car there's plumbing that allows all the fluids to circulate around the car, brake fluid being the most obvious one. Fuel is also another really obvious one. So the fuel tank lives behind the car, so this is really where the fuel tank is. And so in order to get fuel to the front of the car, it is pumped through via a pump that's over here, through some fuel filters that exist here, and then through some fuel lines that are beneath the car. It is these fuel lines that had ruptured that needed to be replaced. So if you have one of these 8 Series BMWs, it doesn't matter if it's the 840i, the 850i, the V8 and V12 are pretty much the same car. They are going to all have the same issue. So this is the first place to look if your 8 Series BMW is failing to start. Now, the next item that needed to be replaced were the fuel filters. This car has 2 fuel filters. It's got 2 of everything, so that's why it's expensive. So there are 2 fuel filters that exist right over here, and these fuel filters deteriorate over time. They're not too expensive. I think they're about, maybe 150 quid for both of them, 200 quid. Not very expensive, but very worthwhile replacing these. There are the fuel lines as well, so there's very special rubber lines that can carry fuel. Be sure not to mix these up, because the rubber pipes that you use need to be able to be submerged in fuel. So if you pick the wrong lines, they'll end up melting effectively, and you'll end up with some very, very bad problems. So yeah, you definitely want to ensure you get the correct rubber lines. So it's those rubber lines that fit into the fuel filters that are directly here that needed to be replaced. So if you've got an 8 Series BMW, be sure to change those fuel filters. If you had to pick an issue that terminates a BMW 8 Series, the next issue is one of the main items to look at. The fuel pump assembly for the 8 Series has been discontinued. This means that it is no longer possible to purchase the part from BMW. Typically, when an 8 Series goes into a garage, they're told that the part is no longer available, and so the car typically is taken back to the owner's home on a trailer, and it ends up spending the next 10 or 20 years in a garage. This is the reason why many 8 Series BMWs have come off the road. There is some good news, however. Now, in America, there's a company called V12throttle.com, so they've got a website that you can go to where they have basically decided to remanufacture and recreate their own fuel pump. Luckily in Europe, however, you can contact BMW and they will give you the individual parts for the fuel assembly. So if you're looking to get one of these cars back on the road, you're going to have to rebuild the fuel pump. So you're going to have to remove the one that's in the car, as I mentioned, by lifting the passenger side seat. I'll just show you how to access it now. The fuel pump is located on the rear passenger seat behind the driver's seat. So if you're in the UK, it is behind the driver's seat. If you're in America, it will be the passenger seat. So you need to move the seat forward. You just push that lever up, and then you need to lift this seat off. It comes off upwards, and beneath there's a circular lid that will allow you to remove the fuel pump assembly. And so once you've gained access to the fuel pump assembly, you remove it and then you give it to a mechanic who should be able to purchase the individual components on the fuel pump from BMW. That is what I did. There are two main fuel pumps that cost £440 each. There's also some little bits that you get free from BMW. The fuel pumps are available from BMW, so if you're looking for OEM fuel pumps that are going to last another 30-35 years, then go to the main dealer. I don't think £440 is too much if you consider the fact that they're going to last for 30-35 years. There are other manufacturers. In fact, I've observed M539 restorations he uses. There's some remanufactured ones, so they must be good if he's using them. They are much cheaper. There's an actual rebuild kit that you can get. I think it's Osiris or something like that, OSRIS, something like that. And they have a full sort of rebuild kit with all the pumps and all the bits you need, so you can get that rebuild kit for around £200. Remember that you need two pumps on this car. This car requires two of everything, yeah, so it's not just a one pump. You're going to need two pumps to refurbish the fuel pump assembly. As I've mentioned, I've seen even another one of these BMWs in Nigeria. Somebody's trying to sell that car now. Unfortunately, it was in a really kind of tatty state. The paintwork was just, the car needed a complete respray. But that car came to the end of its life after the fuel pump failed. So that is the major candidate for the termination of these cars. So be sure to get the fuel pump assembly out, get that tested. It's worth refurbishing all the parts anyway. They're 30 plus years old now, so they need a refresh. So that is another way that we managed to get this BMW back up and running. Now the next item that we replaced were really everything to do with the ignition of the engine. And let me see if I can open up the engine bay. Now, to lift this bonnet, there are two items to depress, and you need to push both of them in with both hands, and then the bonnet will rise. So we, as I mentioned, then proceeded to solve or refresh really most of the ignition components of the car. I believe that this is what has resulted in a smooth running engine. So I don't think any of these are negotiable. If you're purchasing one of these cars, especially after 30 years, it is worth refreshing all these items. So the items that we refreshed were, we replaced all the spark plugs, so that's all 12 of them. We replaced all the ignition lines. This, I believe, was one of the best buys really, the individual sort of ignition wires that I got for 115, 120 quid, all brand new. the new ignition lines and the spark plugs, and we replaced all the fuel injectors as well. Now these were extremely expensive. I purchased one from the main dealer and that cost £155. Luckily I was able to source the parts once I knew what the part number was from Champion Motor Spares, who managed to get me the same part for 58 quid. So the difference, £155 or 58 quid. So that saved me the best part of £1,000. So if you're looking to replace 12 fuel injectors from the main dealer, that's going to cost you £1,800, yeah? So 1,800 and whatever for 12 new fuel injectors. I paid the best part of 700 quid. So a huge saving, and that really I believe is what has led to a smooth running engine. The technicians had basically told me no, you don't need to change the injectors, and they'd struggled really with the misfire that the engine had, and that was just down to the injectors. So for me, replace it all, yeah, replace all the spark plugs, replace all the ignition wires, replace all the fuel injectors. So I've just picked up 10 new fuel injectors. This is the part number, so it's going to be that way round. That's not the actual part number. The actual part number, if I can get away with not showing my address details, so let's try and scan this document to about there. So the part number is B13641731 So that is the official part number from BMW. So this is the fuel injector. We now have a perfectly running engine, and this is running like it ran 20 or 30 years ago. It's an absolute joy to drive. Yeah, so if you're looking to undertake repairing one of these cars, those are really some of the key items that you need to be looking out for. So yeah, hopefully that will give you sort of some pointers as to really what you need to be looking for. I'll try and include all the product numbers, because if I'm honest, the only way that you can repair one of these cars affordably is by purchasing all the parts in advance, and it's by purchasing the parts from independent sources and not the main dealer. We're just going to start the engine so you can have a listen to the sound. I've decided not to shut that door because the car has its own custom alarm system. You can kind of lock yourself in, so yeah, that's why I've left the door open. Let's just go a little bit closer to the engine. I'm going to place the camera on top. The engine is running beautifully. Shall I try placing a pound coin? There you have it. Okay, it's a little bit there. You can balance a pound coin on the engine. That is just how well it's running. Let's have a It's a WOC performance exhaust. I'll go through the returns from the mechanics in the boot of the car, but I just wanted you to have a look at the engine bay area. We replaced obviously these ignition wires, all 12 of them. That for me was the best buy, as I've mentioned already. It was at around 110, 120 quid, and that replaced all the ignition lines. We also replaced all the spark plugs, we replaced all the fuel injectors, and we also replaced the distributor cap and the rotors. So the engine is very, very clean. It looks amazing. Usually when I see these engines, this is completely discolored, and yeah, you can see that this car has really been looked after. So we're going to give this engine bay a clean just before we put the car into hibernation for winter. That lovely lady over there with her partner has just said that's a nice car. So that's the effect that this vehicle has on people. So let me just make sure we've got some audio. So this is the box of tricks. So let's have a look at what we have in here. So we'll leave this till the last. So first up are spark plugs. So this is the state of the spark plugs. They needed to be replaced, really. They're all gone. These are the official OEM spark plugs. So these NGKs, these are the spark plugs that BMW fit. Obviously on a BMW they'll say BMW and not NGK, but in general it's just a labeling exercise. These are exactly the same as the OEM spark plugs, so that will save you an absolute fortune. We replaced all 12, so let me see if I can. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky to do this one-handed, but anyway, there we are. Those are the spark plugs. Okay, this is the cover for the fuel pump assembly. They decided not to use that. This is one of the front grills. In fact, we'll have a quick look at that. If the let me just see if the other grill. Okay, here it is. Yeah, so this is the one that's fitted on the car. And if you look here, there's been some handiwork that's been done there. That's not OEM. So somebody did a good sort of bodge. But I think what's happening is that this is ending up melting. I'd have expected it on the other side as well. But anyway, yeah, so this is going to take some figuring out. I think there's an actual part behind this front bumper, so to fix it correctly we'd have to remove the front bumper and replace a part that's behind the bumper, which is why I think they've gone for this fix. So yeah, at the moment, yeah, we don't have that side grille at the moment, but we do have a replacement one. We're going to need to figure out what we're going to do with this grille here. So let me just show you the actual part number, because a lot of people are charging 100 quid for this part on eBay, and you can get it for 36 quid from the main dealer. So a rare instance where the main dealer is cheaper. Highly recommended, obviously, that you go to the dealer and not eBay for this part, because yeah, everybody's charging 3 times as much. We have some washer fluid. Now, I never realized, let me see if I can just show you this here very quickly. You need to try and pay attention to this label here. Okay, Let me see if we can actually get the focus on there. Now this label obviously shows you that it's 2 of these bottles to 1 water if you live beneath, so if it's basically minus 33 degrees, it's 1 to 1 if it's minus 21 degrees, so that will suit the United Kingdom. And then it is 1 to 2 if it's minus 11, so if you're in Africa, basically in South Africa, somewhere with a warmer climate. Now I thought that this was pre-mixed. It isn't, so if you're purchasing this washer fluid from BMW, you do need to mix it up correctly. So anyway, this trim I believe is for the front, and in fact I've just recorded a video where we were talking about replacing all these parts. I forgot to mention the distributor cap here and the rotors as well. Don't forget them, very, very important, yeah, that you replace both the distributor cap and the rotors. That is another way that we've managed to get this car running smoothly. Obviously these are all the ignition wires or lines that were on the car. This is the gasket for the fuel pump. I purchased 2, so the technicians didn't need to use this. Absolutely essential. You cannot repair, refurbish, remanufacture the fuel pump assembly and not replace this gasket, so make sure you get one of these from the main dealer. It's only, you know, it's under 10 quid, I think it was £6. So yeah, these are some of the ignition lines, and this is a strainer at the bottom of the fuel pump. And so yeah, these are most of the parts really. Now the hardest part to repair on the BMW, this took the most amount of diagnosing, was this. So I'll just pull these items here very carefully just so you can see them. This is what took the most amount of time to diagnose and what was causing the car to not run. So this is on top of all the items that I've explained, but at the front of the car you have these modules, and some of them can develop rust or they can just stop working correctly. Now these ones are the ones that failed on the car, and in fact the technicians went and found some replacement ones from a scrapyard essentially. I was going to actually show you where these live, but they're just at the front here. So if you're looking at the front of the car and you open the bonnet, right here you've got sort of all the electronics, and on there you find these modules. These were an absolute nightmare to diagnose, and these were what were causing this BMW to not start. So I think as a best practice you should be looking to replace all of these, and yeah, hopefully that will result in a smooth running BMW. I'm just going to see if we can open the car and the bonnet. Okay, so the car does have its own custom car alarm, and you can see that with that blue light there. If you click this key fob once, it turns it off. Once it's on. So the way you know that the alarm is off is if that blue light is switched off. The lights tend to blink as well. So for example, I'll click 1 and then it should double click, or flick rather, flicker. Anyway, so let's try and get into this bonnet. Now I'll just place the camera on here, because yeah, you need 2 hands to open this bonnet. Okay, but I wanted to underscore exactly where you need to go, which is here. So if you open up this module here, I would be looking to replace all of these, if I'm honest. There's a very good video by Tim's BMW Repair and Information where he goes into how you can actually do the refurbishment yourself. There's just basically some electronics in there. They're very expensive from BMW. I suspect that I'm going to end up over time just ordering these new from BMW. They're like 300 quid, 300 quid, 300 quid, 400, 500 quid, 300 quid. So you can very easily end up paying 3 or 4 grand to replace all these bits. But these are absolutely essential to test. If we have a check engine light, and the issue is pixelated on the radio, but it seems to be saying live beam failure. I don't know what that might be. Should lighting be causing a check engine light? So we're going to have to remove this radio and get that repaired. I believe there's a new sort of strip that they can add to get rid of the pixelation. Answers on a postcard, please. What is this live beam failure? We have just removed this onboard computer. If you look on top of the radio there, you can see that the OBC, also known as onboard computer, has just been removed. So we're going to take this to a specialist so he can refurbish the unit. I believe there are lights at the top, so there are 4 lights there, and the strip also needs to be refurbished because there are loads of contacts that become poor and cause the pixelation. So hopefully in a week or so we should have a refurbished onboard computer. This is the newly refurbished unit. If you're looking to get one of these refurbed yourself, you can post your onboard computer to Revtronic. They're very good, so we're going to go fit this back on the 8 Series. We're just going to check the OBC. I'm just going to turn the engine on. So key, turn it on. And as you can see, the onboard computer is working perfectly. There was an issue initially when I picked up the OBC, but that was just an initialization issue that happened for the first few seconds. I just needed to be patient. So this is working perfectly. You can see there's a fog light failure. Let's see if we can maybe scroll through. There is a washer fluid low, but it isn't. It's actually quite full. And then there's input clock. I suspect it wants me to enter the date and time. So those are the issues. There's a front fog light failure. There's a washer fluid low. And then there is also a input clock. In fact, we'll have a quick look at the washer fluid. If you go onto the website How Many Left, you'll find that there aren't that many left of this vehicle. There are actually less than 50 of these on the UK roads. In fact, I think the exact figure is 44. There are only 3 manuals. So this car in manual form, there are only 3 of them available in the UK. Obviously there's a few more that are sawn, but only 3 are available on the UK roads as a manual. With this one, only 44 are available as an automatic. I think there's around 200, and that number's remained consistent. So you can see through the years the available 850i's and the ones that are sawn, it's always a consistent number. So yeah, this car is becoming increasingly rare. But this is, yeah, completely breathtaking, and a vehicle that I could spend the next 24 hours talking about. I really just don't want to end up with a super long video. But if you're thinking of buying one of these cars, you've always admired one of these cars, I can't recommend highly enough that you need to really follow your dreams, because nothing will make you feel the way that this car does. And in fact, I've never felt as happy, as joyous, as blissful as I've been over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Long may that continue. This is some vehicle. If you're enjoying the content on this channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm.